Hi, in this lesson, we're going to look at how we can add shapes to our graphics programs. Let's get started. We create a rectangle by using the keyword rectangle and entering width and height values separated by a comma inside parentheses. When we run the commands, we see a rectangle appear on our screen. The rectangle is 100 pixels wide and 300 pixels tall. By default, it is positioned at 0, 0. But we can always use the set position command to move the rectangle to a new location. Note that rectangles are always positioned from their top left-hand corner. This is different than text boxes, which are positioned from their bottom left-hand corner. We can create circles on our screen in a similar way. We use the keyword circle and enter its radius value. Remember, the radius of a circle is the distance from the center of the circle to the outside edge. When we create a circle with a radius of 100 and add it to our screen, we see a quarter of a circle appear. This is because circles are always positioned from their center, and by default, they are located at 0, 0. If we add a set position command to change the location of our shape to 150, 250, we would see that the center of our circle is located at this point, and it has a radius value of 100 pixels. We're going to complete an exercise where we're being asked to draw the flag of Switzerland, which is a square with a red background and a white cross in the center. We are given some constant values, and before we get to writing our program, let's take a minute to plan. First, we'll set the size of the canvas to 250 by 250 pixels. And then create a red rectangle with sides of 250 pixels to fill the screen. This rectangle will be positioned at 0, 0, which is the location it is set to by default, so we won't actually have to do anything for this. We will also need to create two white rectangles, one where the short side is the width, and one where the short side is the height. Let's take a look at where these rectangles should be positioned. We want our rectangle in the center of our red square, and we know that our rectangles are positioned from their top left corner. The entire red square is 250 pixels wide, which means that the horizontal center would be half this amount, or 125 pixels. We also know that the width of our vertical rectangle is 50 pixels, so half of this width is 25 pixels. If we take the 125 pixels to get to the halfway point of our red square and subtract half the width of the white rectangle, we'll get a value of 100 pixels for the x-coordinate of the location of our vertical white rectangle. But what about the y-coordinate? Well, we can follow a similar process. The red square is 250 pixels tall, so half of the height is 125 pixels. The white rectangle is 150 pixels tall, so half of the height is 75 pixels. When we subtract 150 minus 75 pixels, we get a y-coordinate value of 50 pixels. So the location of our vertical rectangle is 100, 50. When we follow this process for our horizontal rectangle, we find that we need to set the location to 50, 100. Now we're ready to write our program. When we first start this program, we see that we have a set size command setting our canvas to 250 pixels wide and 250 pixels tall, creating our square. We're also given some constant values. Let's start by creating our red rectangle object using the rectangle keyword, and I want it to be 250 pixels by 250 pixels. Now I want to set the color of my red rectangle to color.red. And then all I need to do is add red rectangle. Let's see how that works. Perfect. Now I need to create the tall white rectangle. So let's add a comment so that I know what I'm creating here. I'm going to make my white vertical rectangle, and I'm going to use the rectangle keyword to do that. And I know it needs to be 50 pixels wide and 150 pixels tall. Now, when we have long variable names like this, it's easier to just copy and paste to now set the color to color.white, and to set the position to 100, 50, which we calculated in our prep work. Now all I need to do is add my white vertical rectangle. Now I'm going to create the long white rectangle. And instead of vertical, I'm going to call this one horizontal. And I'm going to use the rectangle keyword. And I need this one to be 150 pixels wide and 50 pixels tall. Now I'm going to do the same thing, set the color to color.white, and set the position to 50, 100. Now all I need to do is add it, and let's see how that works. Great. This program was so easy to write because we already figured out all of the locations and dimensions that we needed. Make sure that you always plan your programs before you start coding. In this lesson, we learned how to create rectangles and circles. Now it's your turn.